it might just look like, oh wow, the wood is a little darker here, even in a nice way, but nope. You better start digging and solve the problem before it gets worse.
Welcome back to the boatyard. In the last episode, we took Magic Carpet out of the water and settled her in for a 2-week whirlwind refit. There were a few problem areas that we'd noticed, like these darker sections in the cockpit coaming that we thought we should probably inspect. We were hoping that we'd caught it in time, but the only way to find out for sure was to start disassembling.
So before stripping varnish off to see the extent of the water damage here, there's actually, luckily, one really easy way, and that is by removing this teak rail which is on top. Luckily, it is a very short section, and I believe this is something I've never taken apart. So let's get those bungs off, screws off, and also I think it will be very interesting for some of you Vindo freaks or owners. Because you can see, I mean, I guess we can finally see it, but we can see the laminated mahogany. I believe from my studies that it is 8 layers of like 3mm mahogany bent around, but I guess we'll find out in a second. One of the great mysteries. I'm not kidding you.
Wow, sometimes I stay awake at night wondering about that.
I do. I do. Ooh. When the screws look like this, when they're completely pink, I would not recommend using them again, just because in my experience, basically they have lost one of its component, and now it is very brittle. So many times if you try to screw this in now, if you don't drill accordingly, it will just break off, and then it's really annoying to get them out again. Yes, this is not... here's a good one. No water.
Oh yeah, because it's not pink.
Exactly.
And it is from the section outside of the dark area.
Wow! Da-da-da! We call us detectives. Yeah, this is also a good one. The cockpit coaming. It's not easy to recreate. It's of course not impossible, but it is one of those things where you really want to try your best in keeping it in good shape. So I don't know the verdict yet. I might say I'm glad we caught it early, but we'll have to dig in further to see more.
Because a lot of windows have problem with water seepage up into the cockpit coaming.
Exactly,
But
mostly
here-
this area.
Yeah. Because water tends to pool right there.
Yeah.
And if the seam there isn't perfect, then it'll suck up. But here it's actually getting in this cap rail thingy.
So this is already very interesting. I think there is some kind of glue.
Some glue holding it down because it's not coming off.
No. I think it should be way easier if there wasn't anything. I need wedges, but I don't have wedges.
Yeah.
So now we'll place this underneath, press a bit, and then it will turn. No more loosey-goosey. like hummus.
Ooh. Uh-oh.
And I've already seen it! The mystery! Wow! Makes absolute sense.
What?
But you know it only when you know it. This is solid. Only the curve is laminated. I thought it would all be laminated. Because it has such a wonderful twisted shape here too. But this is solid.
Wow.
Well, many of you might have known already. So we'll saw the rest open. We still want to solve the mystery of the laminated sheets.
Yes. Well, this sheet is laminated, this one isn't.
Exactly.
Isn't that the whole mystery?
Yes, but also it is how many sheets and how thick are they to be able to bend them?
The plot thickens.
Yes.
Da-da-da-da.
There we go.
Oh, you got it.
Awesome.
Nice.
Oh, Now we have the mystery. And even this one in 3 parts, not in 1. You see it? Look at it. It's like 1 centimeter.
Oh, yeah.
Then there is an in between of 2 millimeters, and then there is 1 centimeter again.
Yeah.
And instead here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8 layers.
8 layers of, yeah, that's more 2 millimeters. But yeah, okay, I was right about that one then. So now that we know about the composition of this cockpit combing, to some of our verdicts. So even though it is glued down, the glue seems to break down with a little bit of moisture. As we saw, it was perfect here, but here where we do have some moisture, it didn't hold at all. So basically we'll have to replace that with sealant, maybe something like Sikaflex 291, maybe in brown. The wood is still good. It's the in-between layer which looks a little worse. Here it is pretty close. This middle layer is soaked.
Yeah, it's getting soft, hey?
Yeah.
So this can dry out all winter.
Yeah, we'll leave
Yeah.
this. We won't do anything here. This one is left open.
Yeah.
To dry out, and when it's dry we'll maybe impregnate it with oils. We'll see. Yeah, but for now it's demolition.
Wow. Aggressive choice of words.
Although we hadn't identified any severe areas of rot yet, there was still plenty of room for surprises to be found where the winch pad connects to the coaming, so we weren't in the clear just yet.
So I hope you can hear me over the sound of the rain on the roof. But I'm really, really, really glad that we decided to remove all of the teak from the top of the mahogany coping. Even though we only could see one problem area, it turns out that there was actually more just silently growing beneath it all. So if you have a look at here, there's absolutely no dark patches, there's absolutely no signs of water intrusion. You wouldn't think that anything is going wrong here. But then when we took off the teak rail, in fact, there is water intrusion around some of these screw holes getting into the wood and just waiting for a more serious problem to occur. So we've caught it now at a point where there's absolutely no damage done. It can dry out over winter, and then we can seal it all back up and it'll be good as new.
It's in really good condition.
It's in really good condition,
Yeah.
but if left just a little bit longer, that would no longer be the case and we would have permanently damaged wood.
Totally.
So it's pretty amazing. I mean, just from seeing a few bubbles and one dark patch over here, Aladino noticed that there's a problem which we need to at least look at. And that has led to essentially saving the entire cockpit, which is pretty remarkable. There's more wet patches over here on the other side. Again, not really visible from the outside. There are, it's maybe a touch darker here, but still, it's not a lot. Good job for spotting that and for making
Good
sure
job,
this was
you
a
too.
priority.
Not that everything needs modernizing. I mean, many things I think were better in the good old days. talking of craftsmanship, but one thing that I'm steering away from, and for example here, I don't think I will use screws anymore, because even though it was screwed down, it was still really hard to get off. So where I use screws, it's because the screws should do the holding, and then to seal it, for example, you use butyl tape, which doesn't actually glue together or doesn't bond, it's just a sealant. But I think here we might glue it down with some Sika, like I said, 291, and then there is no need for screws. So there won't be any screws and it will just be glued down. So in case you have to remove it again, it will be a little annoying, but on the other side, you really shouldn't remove it anymore. I've removed both winch pads. They came off pretty easy, and besides the moisture that we had already seen, which was coming from the top, this side is actually alright. I mean, clearly we can see that moisture was running through in these darker areas, and it's kind of broken up the glue. It is a little affected by moisture, but this will dry out. But the other side looks like it didn't survive. And it's incredible. We really are learning a lot from this. Minimal signs. It might just look like, oh wow, the wood is a little darker here, even in a nice way, but nope. You better start digging and solve the problem before it gets worse.
Well, and I think this is really interesting because this side is the one that we noticed.
Yeah.
This is the side where we saw, okay, there's clearly a dark patch, let's investigate a bit further. And this is also the side where, you know, there is moisture damage, but it'll dry out and it'll be okay. It's not too far gone. This side, there was almost nothing noticeable from the exterior.
I mean, now that we know, we do see it, but it's
yeah,
so
it's
minimal.
a very faint dark patch, but I don't even know if we would have done anything about it if that was the only visible sign.
Yeah, totally.
However, you wanna show what we found on this side?
Well, as we see, hardly anything visible, but it was rotting from inside. You see this spot here?
Yeah, and that's really bad.
Like, this is no more structural integrity of the wood at all. It is completely molded away. It's soft as a marshmallow.
Mm-hmm.
But it's incredible. You don't see a thing from outside. Well, except this one here, but it's so hard to stick your head in there. So I didn't see this before.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see anything from here either. Well, this is teak. But it was growing.
Mm-hmm.
It was growing. And also it has affected the cockpit coming from outside. I mean, obviously where it was wet here, it's also moldy, and we have to replace it. Only one layer though, the 1 centimeter. This one is good. And it's about an area the size, like over there, like this. So I think we cut it out, let it dry, and then when in the spring or whenever we're ready to revarnish, we glue on new mahogany patch. Luckily, it is all in the invisible area, because once we get a new winch pad and we install a new winch pad, all the repairs should be hidden perfectly and not visible. So we have caught it in time. Yeah, no more scraby. I cut it straight out.
I mean, it's quite shallow. I mean, some people would just fill that with epoxy, wouldn't they?
Probably. And I'm also thinking about it, but more because it's difficult to source and get the wood. Just shape it. I mean, I only have a fine multi-tool on board. It's hard to do any of that with it. But it's a pretty easy piece. I mean, not very flat, but the width you can clamp it on and it will get the shape.
And it's not visible, so this is totally structural, because this will all be hidden again. So it doesn't have to be like a work of art, it just has to be strong.
Exactly. I think it's separating.
Yay!
Or is it only the top? So moisture was seeping through, but the wood is still good. So this one we can just let dry and we will have saved it. But it's incredible. Just because of a little bit of this moisture seeping through, it gets a little darker. It's incredible because it's so dry. Or it's, well, I mean, a little bit humid and it's visible through 1 centimeter of wood.
Well, it's barely visible on this side.
It's barely visible, but it still is once you know.
Yeah.
And this, of course. Yeah, that's a good foundation. I like it. Nice cut. Clean. And now we let it dry.
So I'm now going to do some work to refurbish these winch pads now that they are unattached from the rest of the boat. I'm going to start off just by sanding the teak on top to get a nice surface on top. And then I will remove the varnish. And I'll remove the varnish here, I think, just with sandpaper. So it'll take a while because it's quite thick, it's quite built up. But I should be able to do that with some rough sandpaper. I have 60 grit on the machine right now. And then the satisfying part, so this is the winch pad that has some rot in it. So I'm going to dig this rot out with a screwdriver, which is honestly going to be so satisfying. I'm so looking forward to that. And then we'll think about how we repair it, whether or not we want to cut a piece of wood that fits in there or what we do. I'm not really sure what the options are. All right, that's what I'm doing now.
I was old, I was young, I was sitting in the sun, I was tired of the run, I was done. Life was great, life was hard, in a way an awful card. You can't win the losing hand.
So we're now trying to remove everything that is silicone very carefully. There's a seam right here and it's silicone. So I'm scratching it off with this. It's very easy to clean and I don't contaminate anything else.
Silicone can both be a boat builder's worst enemy and best friend. It's the worst enemy because basically wherever there's silicone, even the tiniest little dust particle that comes from sanding a surface with silicone and then the dust lands somewhere else, anywhere where there's silicone, paint and varnish won't stick. And what you'll see is you'll see a little sort of circle emanating out from that tiny little dust particle of silicone where the varnish or paint basically just disappears. It just sucks away. So if your surface has silicone on it when you're varnishing, it's very visible. It's not just sort of like a picky boat builder thing. No, it's visible to anyone. So for that reason, anywhere where there's silicone, if you have to remove it or you have to work with it in any way, you have to be very, very careful. So right now, Aladino is carefully scraping the silicone away with a chisel. We're immediately vacuuming it up and it's off the boat. The chisel can be very easily cleaned, and we're not using the sander because the little dust particles can get caught in that sander and then spread to other areas. So you have to be really careful. But there is a reason why silicone is still used in boat building, and that reason is that it's extremely long lasting. A silicone seam will last for years and years and years and years and years, longer than polyurethane seams. Our Vindo is a good example. The teak decks were originally sealed with silicone, and the original sealant is still in place 40 years later, and it's still soft and rubbery, and it doesn't feel like a year has gone by. So silicone is really powerful for that reason. So with those two things in mind, I think my advice, or our advice about silicone, would be if you have a brand new boat and you're not planning on having to do any big cosmetic upgrades involving paint or even having to remove any seams for several years down the road, then I think silicone is a good solution for a long-lasting and very durable sealant. But if you have an older boat and you know that you're going to have upgrades and cosmetic repairs that you're going to be doing along the way, especially if you've got a wooden boat that needs more constant maintenance and probably more constant work involving removal of seams, then silicone isn't a good option to go with because it makes for a real pain further on down the road. So our boat still does have silicone on board, but we are slowly trying to replace all of that with polyurethane so that we don't have these huge problems with varnish and paint.
Now that I'm done with the chisel, I'm going to wipe the surface with silicone remover once or twice. Some of you might make fun of me, but I've had a few jobs that I had to do 4 times, 5, 6 instead of once because of silicone, so I really don't like it.
Rain stopped falling and the line on the floor was crossed, and the pain I'd been feeling washed away to return another day.
Done. Varnish removed.
I had fragmented my soul into pieces contradicting.
So repairs are seeing some progress, but we really have to vamp it up. We have 3 more days and the varnish is still on the cabin top and on the coamings. So as satisfying as it is to finish little jobs that I've kind of been distracted with all the time, I have to get at the bigger picture. But just before I do that, here, this one has seen an update. So I just used the fine with the cutting blade, and the guys in the boatyard said I can use some mahogany. So they have a board which was perfect in thickness, and I've just quickly traced it out and set it in place. So I will not mix epoxy just for this now. I just leave it like that. It's loosely in place. And when I have a couple of things accumulated, then I use the epoxy for all the things that are coming up. Like there's bungs, there's this one here, the teak fiddles where they need epoxy because sometimes the wood separates a little bit, so I glue it back together. Then I will glue it in place. But basically, also I want to say here that this is not the most proper job. Like it will do in this instance, but like I have mentioned it before, when you do an inlay, an insert like this, then you wouldn't want to do a 90-degree cut, but you want to do a scarf, and that is for better adhesion. But because this is only half of the piece, and because basically an entire winch pad of this length will be attached on it, strengthening and stiffening it additionally, I find it is totally okay. But now if it was to go over the entire combing, then you have to do at least 5 to 10 times the thickness, the width of the combing in scarf. Like, let's say it's 2 centimeters, and then you do minimum 5, what did I say? Yeah, 2 centimeters, so you do 5 to 10 centimeters of scarf to get a bigger glue surface. But as I said, this piece is wedged in between from inside. It will have this long of a pad right here. So then I just chose to go for the easiest and quickest. So we can continue.
And so this story will wrap to a close, at least for now. We were glad to have discovered this rot before it became a big structural or cosmetic problem, and with Aladino's skills, Magic Carpet will be able to be restored to peak beauty and strength. With a wooden boat, it sure pays to look closely, and to always hope for the best but plan for the worst. As always, a huge thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, we would absolutely love it if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and we also love hearing from you. We do read all the comments, so feel free to leave a comment about what you thought of this episode. We'll be back next Friday, as always, with more updates about Magic Carpet, and in the coming weeks, we're going to have a big announcement on the way, so be sure to stay tuned for that. That's a good reason to have those notifications turned on, so whenever we post a new video, you get to be the first to see it. And as always, an extra big thanks to our patrons for making all of these episodes possible. We really couldn't do it without you guys. And in return, the patrons do get real-time updates every week. I actually post an article or a video every Tuesday just for the patrons. So if you want to get in on that, you can do so for as little as $2 a month. It's really up to you what you pay. And that really helps us to produce these videos, keep the channel going, upgrade equipment, all of that. And as always, an extra big thanks to these folks who really make sure to go the extra mile to make sure that Magic Carpet keeps being produced, and we will see you all next Friday.
They say times are getting hard on a working man. Yeah, they say times are getting hard on a working man. Well, I don't care what time it is. I want what's mine and not what's his. Wanna pull my wagon with my own two hands. They say there's not near enough here to go around. Oops. Yeah, they say there's not near enough here to go around. Well, I don't mind sharing bread and supper, but when it comes to tobacco, it's each man's own. And if you brought your own bottle, come on and sit right down. Sometimes it seems like everybody wants to bring you down. Yeah, sometimes it seems like everybody wants to bring you down. But don't go home and slash your wrists. Come out fighting with both your fists. I know you don't believe me, but things sure can turn around. They say times are getting hard on the working man. Yeah, they say times are getting hard on the working man. Well, I don't care what time it is. I want what's mine and not what's his. I wanna pull my wagon with my own two hands.
Bravo! Fantastic.